Welcome to the lead. I'm Jake Tapper. We begin today with the politics lead. Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, accused Attorney General Bill Barr today of breaking the law.
He lied to Congress. He lied to Congress. If anybody else did that, it would be considered a crime. Nobody is above the law.
Now, the Attorney General disputes that, and the Department of Justice said this afternoon that the attack was baseless. Barr also added fuel to the fire today when he refused to testify before the House Judiciary Committee, objecting to the format which allowed committee lawyers to ask questions as well as lawmakers. Partisan theatrics and fireworks then dominated Capitol Hill as the committee's Democratic chairman Jerry Nadler opened the hearing with a prop, an empty chair for the nation's top law enforcement officer. Nadler is threatening to hold Barr in contempt of Congress. CNN's Sarah Murray begins our coverage.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the highest-ranking Democrat, calling the nation's top law enforcement officer a liar.
The Attorney General of the United States of America was not telling the truth to the Congress of the United States. That's a crime.
House Democrats now threatening to hold William Barr in contempt, ramping up pressure on the Attorney General after he refused to appear before the House Judiciary Committee today. As Barr headed to work, Democrats seized on the empty witness chair.
Come to order.
Creating their own made-for-TV spectacle. Congressman Steve Cohen, a Tennessee Democrat, munched on a bucket of fried chicken during the hearing and flaunted a ceramic chicken to drive his point home.
Chicken Barr should have shown up today and answered questions.
Barr skipping the hearing after Democrats demanded he face questions from staff lawyers in a 30-minute block, on top of the 5-minute rounds of questions from lawmakers.
He took our ability to hear from Bill Barr today.
As Republicans slammed the performance of their Democratic colleagues,
instead, we go back to a circus political stunt to say we want it to look like an impeachment hearing because they won't bring impeachment proceedings. That's the reason.
House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler threatened contempt proceedings over not giving the committee an unredacted version of Mueller's report by yesterday's subpoena deadline.
We will have no choice but to move quickly to hold the Attorney General in contempt if he stalls or fails to negotiate in good faith.
But it's clear he plans to drag this out, vowing first to fight for an unredacted version of the Mueller report and then try to negotiate with the Justice Department before holding Barr in contempt. As for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she's all in, accusing Barr of lying after he claimed in previous testimony to be unaware of whether the special counsel's team was frustrated with his 4-page summary of their findings.
He lied to Congress. If anybody else did that, it would be considered a crime. Nobody is above the law, not the President of the United States and not the Attorney General.
A Justice Department spokeswoman fired back, saying the baseless attack on the Attorney General is reckless, irresponsible, and false. Now, of course, the big question is if or when we are going to hear from Bob Mueller. He's been largely silent aside from this letter. Democrats say they are working on scheduling it. Republicans, surprisingly, a number of them say they don't really need to hear from Bob Mueller anyway. Jake?
All right, let's discuss this all. And let's go back, because I reached out to Speaker Pelosi's office. I said, what is the lie that you're referring to? And they pointed me to this exchange between Democratic Congressman Charlie Crist and Attorney General Barr after the Mueller had sent him a letter, but before today.
Reports have emerged recently, General, that members of the special counsel's team are frustrated at some level with the limited information included in your March 24th letter, that it does not adequately or accurately necessarily portray the report's findings. Do you know what they're referencing with that?
No, I don't. I suspect that they probably wanted, more put out, but in my view, I was not interested in putting out summaries or trying to summarize.
Okay, so just as a fact check, he said, no, I don't know. That's not true. I suspect, and he did more than suspect, he knew firsthand. So I understand why she's saying that this is not as forthcoming as possible. What is she going to do about it?
I mean, that's the great question. They say that they're going to move forward, that they, may decide to hold him in contempt. But the reality is I don't think there is a lot they can do. I mean, he has sort of cast his dice in this. He has decided to go out there, and if he didn't lie, he certainly wasn't forthcoming, and he certainly wasn't entirely truthful. But I also think he knows that there's really not a whole lot that they can do to him.
And what do you think Democrats running for president should do? Forget Congress for a second, just the ones running for president, because Two of them, Swalwell and Castro, have called for his impeachment, Barr's impeachment, and I think pretty much everyone else has called for Barr to resign, which, spoiler alert, he's not going to do. What do you think they should say?
So I think I think if I were running, right, this is going to continue to play out for the next several months. And what they should continue to say is to talk about the corruption of this administration. I mean, people understand, they don't understand all the details of who did what to whom and the Russians, and the obstruction maybe not. They understand lying, right? Keep it very simple and straightforward. On its face, what Barr said doesn't pass the smell test. I mean, if your children came in and said that to you, you wouldn't believe that, right? We know there was not just a letter, there was a phone conversation, and you could tell from the way Barr was trying to answer these questions, he was sort of thinking through in his mind, how do I answer this without opening new avenues or getting into more trouble? So I would say keep it simple. Talk about lying, talk about corruption, talk about the need to, and that while they're doing that, while they're protecting the president, they're not getting the job done for you. Because again, you think you always want to bring it back to why it should matter in your daily life. But lying, people understand, plain and simple.
And then there's the argument of what happened today. And I want you to take a listen, Jackie, to the ranking member, Congressman Collins, the top Republican on judiciary, when asked why it was so important for the committee to have staff lawyers for 30 minutes as opposed to just members of Congress questioning, which is a question I still haven't heard satisfactorily answered. Here he is making the same point.
Why does the chairman think so little of his lawyers on his committee that he wouldn't take 30 minutes for himself or for others to actually ask questions? He's got some great attorneys. To me, it's a slap in the face at his own people.
Why did Nadler insist on having lawyers as opposed to members of Congress get to ask? I don't remember any time in the Obama administration where lawyers asked questions of people testifying.
Right, and Nadler said it had something to do with the 5-minute rule. The members can only speak for 5 minutes, and that Trump appointees have a way of filibustering. It really isn't clear, though, why this was the deal breaker, why this was allowed to be the deal breaker. I mean, we could guess that maybe the Democrats are playing games here. I mean, but Nadler during his initial speech was trying to make this not about politics, as they do, talking about how this is a constitutional issue. This is a battle of the branches. But why it was allowed to go this far, it really is. It's an unanswered question.
I don't understand, but Congressman Nadler says, Chairman Nadler says, we're allowed to decide the format, and this is the format we wanted.
I guess, but you're elected. Ask the questions. You got elected, ask the question. You have the ability to ask questions. You have the power to investigate. You have the power to impeach. And at some point, it feels like put up or shut up time. I just think that you have the entire report. You have a summary, the top lines of which were not inaccurate, as illustrated by the fact that Mueller told Barr that the top lines were not inaccurate.
According to Barr.
He wanted more nuance. There's a lot of nuance in the 448 pages. If you want to impeach Barr or Trump, do so. And in the meantime, it does feel like people are upset that they didn't get the conclusion they wanted, and they are unwilling to do the impeachment part because they know it will be a bad political decision, even though their base wants it.
But I don't agree with that. I think the idea here is to lay out the case, right? If you're going to go for impeachment, I think Democrats have decided the only way to do that is you've got to lay out the public evidence for the American people to bring people along to get them there, to increase the public pressure. They may end up getting there, they may not. But that being said, I mean, think about, we're having this conversation over, well, members of Congress get to talk for this many minutes, but Barr didn't want to talk to the lawyers. What I think most people would hear at home is, well, why wouldn't you just go answer the questions? Well, that doesn't make sense.
Something else, I'm going to come to you on this, but because you talk about Democrats need to make the case. Here's Congressman Steve Cohen with a ceramic chicken and a tub of Kentucky Fried Chicken trying to make the case. Take a listen.
Chicken Barr should have shown up today and answered questions. An attorney general who is picked for his legal acumen and his abilities would not be fearful of any other attorneys questioning him for 30 minutes. This man was picked to be Roy Cohn and to be Donald Trump's fixer. It's a sad day in America.
And there's also a tub of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, in case you missed that, he was actually eating it. And you say, people will ask, why didn't he just show up and answer the questions? And that may be true, but people also might ask, okay, then why didn't you guys just say, you know what, we're going to do this the same way we always do it. He's going to come here and we're going to answer the questions, and we're not going to air a bunch of footage of a ceramic chicken and people eating fried chicken. I mean, if you really want to lay out the public evidence, then you might have to acquiesce. I'm sorry, your party is not the one in the White House. You guys are not in charge of these officials. And so if you really want the information, then bring these public officials forward and get the information. I certainly think journalists would rather watch another round of questions to Bill Barr than, the fried chicken.
To be fair to Cohen, if I were a lawmaker, I would show up at every single event with a bucket of Bojangles.
Yeah.
So
just because you're hungry,
I'm not sure it would be
not to make a point.
I'm not sure it would be effective, but I would do it.
But that's just like I'm saying this because you like the chicken.
Yeah, it'd make
you
a lot
enjoy
of
fried
friends.
chicken.
He did share.
Everyone's sticker he shared. Very nice. Tastes better if you share, a friend of mine always says.